In this video, welcome to Navy Exclusive. Imagine a 4-ton carrier killer missile screaming toward a port at supersonic speed, completely unstoppable by traditional guns. You might think this is the end for the defenders, but a dark green pickup truck on the pier is about to rewrite the rules of modern warfare. We are going to expose how the United States just shattered Russia's strategic plans using low-cost tech. We will pull back the curtain on a high-stakes tactical chess match, tracing how cheap drones were used as bait, how advanced sensors were hunted, and how a genius bolt-on brain turned old junk into surgical snipers, where we dissect the cutting edge of naval and coastal combat. It is 2:40 a.m. at the edge of the Odesa port, and a Russian Shahed-136 drone slams directly into a steel shipping crane. The massive structure buckles and groans under the impact. Behind that single drone, 40 more of these suicide platforms are screaming across the black waters of the Black Sea. Suddenly, a dark green pickup truck on the pier skids to a sudden halt. In the back of the truck, a U.S. 6-barreled M134 minigun opens up with a terrifying wall of fire. The lead drone instantly vanishes into a cloud of debris, but the incoming swarm splits apart. 20 drones dive low toward the critical grain silos, flying behind the cover of the concrete warehouses. They think they have found the blind spot in the harbor defense. But here is where it gets interesting, because a small, palletized box bolted to the bed of a nearby truck suddenly pivots. This is the highly mobile U.S. Vampire system. Its APKWS rocket steers itself directly into the incoming drone, hitting the engine dead center. Just 4 seconds later, another rocket is screaming into the air. Then, another. The innovative Vampire system turns a standard pickup truck into a surgical sniper. The original Russian plan was to bleed Ukraine completely dry by forcing them to use million-dollar missiles on cheap targets. But with the deployment of the Vampire and the M134 minigun, the U.S. just completely broke the Russian strategy. But then, the sensor screens on the active Vampire units begin to flicker. The radar returns for the remaining 20 drones suddenly vanish from the monitors. The drones simply disappeared from the tactical map. The first wave of Shahed-136 drones was not actually the main attack. These initial drones had only one job: to be loud, to be seen, and to force the Vampire systems to turn on their active sensors by firing the APKWS rockets. By engaging the targets, the gun trucks revealed their exact GPS coordinates to Russian electronic intelligence aircraft circling high over the Black Sea. Suddenly, a dangerous new signal screams across the defense network. Russia has just launched a K-31P, a deadly anti-radiation missile. The K-31P rides the active radar beam of the Vampire system straight back to the source. The first supersonic missile hits a pier just 100 yards from a major grain elevator. The concrete pier instantly liquefies, and the massive shockwave tosses a nearby shipping container into the air like a toy. The Russian forces used cheap drones to force the expensive U.S. sensors to reveal themselves, and then the shadow swarm arrives. From the dark water, 15 more Shahed-136 drones suddenly emerge. These are not the same basic models from the first wave. These new platforms have been fitted with specialized, muffled exhausts and coated in dark, radar-absorbent paint. Because the supersonic missile just knocked out the primary tracking sensors, these shadow drones are now effectively invisible to the defenders. The backup M134 minigun pivots wildly on its mount. The barrels are spraying a continuous wall of tracer fire into the pitch-black night. It is a completely blind defense. One Shahed-136 is clipped by a stray round, its wing shatters, and it carts directly into the harbor, exploding in a flash of fire. But 3 more drones use the bright flash of that explosion to mask their final approach. They dive low. They are aiming directly for the remaining gun trucks on the pier. Russia realized that as long as these American systems are operational, the port remains a total no-go zone. To win the city, they have to kill the trucks. A drone slams into the asphalt just 30 feet from a second Vampire unit. The truck has to move immediately. It lurches into gear, racing down the pier to escape the spreading flames. But a truck in motion cannot fire with precision. As the vehicle maneuvers, the shadow swarm splits apart once again. 5 drones climb up to 500 feet, and then they cut their engines entirely. They are now gliding toward their targets in total silence. They are falling toward the most vulnerable part of the entire port, the electrical substations that power the city's critical water pumps. The U.S.-supplied defenses are being pulled in 2 different directions at once. If they stay to protect the power grid, the supersonic missiles will find their sensors. If they move to hide from the missiles, the glider drones will drop straight through the roof of the infrastructure. Just as the first glider drone aligns its nose with the substation roof, a new sound echoes across the dark water. It is the high-pitched whine of a directed energy pulse. The U.S. had one more move, something they had not shown the Russians yet. And this specific weapon does not use an active radar beam that an anti-radiation missile can track. Along the perimeter of the electrical grid, 4 M134 miniguns are mounted on high-mobility flatbeds. These defensive systems are now linked directly to advanced acoustic sensors. These are high-sensitivity microphones that can hear the faint whistle of the wind over a drone's plastic wings from 800 yards away. The first M134 minigun waits quietly for the acoustic triangulation to confirm the target, then the night suddenly explodes. The M134 fires an incredible 66 rounds every single second. The gun is not trying to carefully snipe the drone. It is building a massive wall of metal in the air that is completely impossible to fly through. If the drone touches any part of that dense arc, it dies. One shadow swarm drone is caught in the sweeping fire. The heavy rounds punch straight through the drone's nose and ignite the high explosive payload instantly. The Russian controllers realize their glider tactic has been spotted. They immediately trigger their second plot twist. The 2 remaining shadow drones are not standard models. They are specialized carrier drones. As the M134 tracers reach out for them, the drones suddenly split apart. The outer casing falls away, releasing work is no longer tracking just 2 targets. It is tracking 12. These micromunitions are far too small for the minigun tracers to hit individually, and too fast to catch with a standard lead curtain. They dive hard toward the cooling fans of the substation. If those fans are destroyed, the massive transformers will rapidly overheat and melt. The port and the entire city will go dark, regardless of whether the grain silos are left standing. The M134 barrels are glowing bright red from the constant firing. Suddenly, one gun jams as a spent casing fails to eject from the chamber. The wall of lead now has a critical hole in it. 3 micromunitions scream directly through that gap. They are now just 10 feet from the substation fence. But as the munitions cross the fence line, their internal gyroscopes suddenly begin to spin wildly out of control. They veer sharply to the left and right, slamming hard into the concrete pavement and detonating harmlessly away from the vital transformers. The directed energy pulse has been activated. This is a high-power microwave short circuit. The U.S.-supplied tactical, high-power operational responder system, known as Thor, just fired a massive cone of energy across the substation. It does not break the drone's wings. It fries the drone's brain. The electronics inside the micromunitions are instantly cooked by the intense energy. The Russian micromunition gambit has failed completely, but the Russian electronic intelligence aircraft are still circling high above. It is now 3:22 a.m. The port of Odesa is a deadly chess match, where every single move reveals the player's exact position. The Russian aircraft launch a second Ka-31P missile. They want to kill the Thor system that just fried their micromunitions. But the exact moment the microwave pulse finished, the Thor system was completely powered down. The truck it is mounted on is already racing away toward a secure concrete tunnel. The Russian missile arrives 3 minutes later, hitting nothing but an empty patch of smoking asphalt. But then the Russian mother drone appears on the scans. This is a larger, twin-engine platform loitering 5 miles out over the safety of the Black Sea. It allows the Russian pilots to see directly through the cameras of any remaining drones in the area. As long as that mother drone remains in the air, Russia has a god's eye view of the Odesa port. The vampire truck back on the pier is completely blind. Its sensor mast was destroyed in the earlier blast, but the system is entirely vehicle-agnostic. This means the weapon launcher and the tracking sensor do not have to be on the same truck. A small, hand-launched drone, a Puma AE, is hovering 2,000 feet above the port. It is virtually invisible to Russian radar because it is made of lightweight foam. Crucially, it carries a laser designator. The Puma drone's camera finds the Russian mother drone 5 miles away. Back on the pier, the Vampire launcher receives the precise target data from the Puma over a secure link. Then, a 70mm APKWS rocket leaves the rail with a roar. It performs a classic loft maneuver, climbing high into the cold night air to gain potential energy. By flying upward first, the rocket can glide much further, extending its operational range far beyond what a standard rocket can normally reach. These fins catch the reflection of the laser beam being fired by the small foam Puma drone 5 miles away. The rocket dives. The Russian mother drone tries frantically to maneuver out of the way. It fires flares, and it tries to jam the incoming signal. But the APKWS is only looking for that one specific wavelength of laser light. You simply cannot jam a laser beam with a radio signal. It is like trying to put out a powerful flashlight by screaming at it. The APKWS hits the mother drone right where the wing meets the fuselage. In an instant, every single Russian drone remaining over Odesa loses its data connection. They immediately enter an automated hover mode, drifting aimlessly in the wind. But Russia has one final heavyweight move left to play. If the surgical drones cannot get through the defense, they will use raw supersonic force to crush the port's spirit. From a hidden coastal battery located near Sevastopol, a P-800 Onyx supersonic cruise missile screams off its launcher. This is a massive 4-ton carrier killer, originally designed to sink U.S. supercarriers. The missile is moving so fast that it reaches the Odesa port in less than 4 minutes. Traditional defensive guns cannot turn fast enough to track it. The M134 minigun units on the ground are completely useless against a heavy target moving at this velocity. The bullets would simply bounce off the reinforced nose cone like pebbles against a tank. But the U.S. supplied defense has one final plot twist. The Vampire trucks are no longer operating as individual units. They have entered a distributed network. 3 different trucks, parked half a mile apart, all lock their laser designators onto a single precise point in the sky. This point is 3 miles in front of the incoming P-800 Onyx missile. The trucks are sharing data through a secure link, acting together as one single machine. A salvo of 6 APKWS rockets launches from the trucks in a staggered sequence. They are aiming for the exact space the missile is about to occupy. This is like a quarterback throwing a football to where the receiver will be, not where he is standing now. As the APKWS rockets reach the intercept point, we see the impact of a special upgrade. The U.S. has fitted these specific rockets with advanced proximity fuses. These fuses use tiny radar pulses to detect when an object is nearby. The 6 rockets detonate simultaneously, creating a massive cloud of tungsten shrapnel in the path of the cruise missile. Thousands of tiny, razor-sharp pellets hang in the cold air. The heavy P-800 Onyx missile flies straight into this dense cloud at supersonic speed. The missile's critical air intake is instantly shredded. The turbine blades inside shatter and explode outward through the fuselage. The P-800 Onyx loses its aerodynamic stability and begins to tumble wildly. Flipping end over end at supersonic speeds, it disintegrates mid-air, scattering burning wreckage across the empty harbor in a rain of molten metal. The Russian military's most expensive coastal missile was just completely defeated by a cluster of $30,000 rockets. But the Russian commanders, desperate to salvage something from the raid, launch a final wave. They fire every remaining Ke-35 anti-ship missile in their inventory, along with 10 older S-300 missiles modified for ground attack.